Are you the type of person that's really good at making sure everyone else is okay, sometimes to the cost to yourself? Or are you really, really good at keeping going, very self-reliant, will never ask for help, and yet when you go on holiday, find you get ill? These are just two examples of our ego traps, and to find out more, keep watching. So let's explore ego traps. And the reason I call them traps, it's because they are almost automatic or habitual in terms of how we show up and how our ego affects the way we behave. And the reason they're there is we do get something out of it. But we also can damage our interactions or our reactions to different situations. They're not always helpful to us. So it's useful to build an understanding of what they are. Let me share with you a story of when I was a coach way back, and I was coaching a client who was having some challenges with his team. In one of our coaching sessions, I asked the question, what can you be responsible for in terms of how your team are showing up? I asked that question in all innocence. I felt it was a valid, curious question to ask any leader of their team. But it pressed a button in my client, and he reacted. He reacted aggressively. He reacted by saying that that wasn't the point. The point was his team were the problem, not him. And why was he being questioned by me about the responsibility he had in how they showed up? I shrank inside. I thought, whoa, I've really upset my client. I didn't mean to do that. And rather than holding with the question, I allowed it to pass, and I just listened to his annoyance and his blaming of the team. That story illustrates two very clear, different types of ego trap. There's the ego trap, which is where we overinflate our sense of self, where we feel overly powerful in that moment. Although that we might be kidding ourselves that we're powerful, but we might feel it in that moment. Those are what I call our overinflated ego traps. And those are the type of ego traps that you may well have seen written about in the press, in the media, because that's the ego traps that we more ordinarily talk about. Like he or she has a really big ego, or he or she only wants to talk about themselves. It's all about them. They've got a really big ego. We talk about the overinflated type of ego. But this story illustrates the underinflated type of ego as well. And the underinflated type of ego was being illustrated by my reaction. So at the point that my client got annoyed, I got scared, I got anxious, and I immediately withdrew. I internally had a reaction, and I played small. And what I'm demonstrating there is reacting to an underinflated ego trap. And we have several ego traps that are underinflated and also those that are overinflated. But what the two have in common is that they interfere with our sense of power and our ability to deal effectively in a conversation or interaction that we're having. So, for example, in the underinflated ego trap, I played small. That little voice in my head caused me to think I'm not okay here. He's the okay one. And I withdrew and I lost my sense of personal power. For my client, his overinflated ego trap caused him to feel powerful in that moment. He was putting upon me that he was right and I was wrong to be challenging him. And that's what an overinflated ego trap can do. It gives us a false sense of power. But ultimately, he was losing power because he wasn't getting any closer to understanding what was happening with the dynamics on his team, because he was refusing to look at himself and he was refusing to take responsibility. So the thing is, we all have overinflated and underinflated ego traps. And in my next video, I will go into more detail about the different overinflated ego traps we have. But in the meantime, have a think about where you can be overinflated or underinflated in terms of your ego, or the people around you, what you notice about them too. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Please make a comment in the box below, and also please subscribe to my channel. And if you'd like to be kept in touch of when we're posting videos, please remember to ring the bell.